Hi, this is Captain Steve Tarrant from Maine Maritime Academy. And in this video, I'm just going to be showing you how you can use Bowditch 2 to solve your problems on the various sailings. That'd be plain, parallel, mid-lat, Mercator, and Great Circle. I'm not going to go into any examples or great explanations. I'm going to show you how Bowditch is organized and where you can find the formulas and the instructions on how to use them. Before we do that, though, I just want to make one distinction between the sailings. Parallel, plain, mid-lat, and Mercator, okay, they are all some version of rhumb line sailing, okay? Rhumb lines are lines that cross meridians at the same angle. So they're all some form of rhumb line sailing. The Great Circle is its own kind of sailing. So as we do this, we're going to think about these in terms of rhumb line sailings versus Great Circle. This is also a summary slide. It might be worth you spending a few minutes on it. Again, parallel, plain, mid-lat, and Mercator, they're all rhumb line sailings. Great Circle is its own kind of sailing. This table is organized by problem types. Turns out for parallel, there's only two types of problems you can get. Given find P given D low, or find D low given P. For these three sailings, there's only two types of problems. Find the latitude and longitude of arrival, okay, or find the course and distance. Okay, so given a departure and a course and distance, find latitude and longitude of arrival, or in this second situation, given a point of departure and a point of arrival, find the course and distance. That's the same for mid-lat and Mercator. Great Circle, there's more kinds of problems. There's actually four kinds of problems. Find the latitude and longitude of the vertex, find the latitude and longitude of some points along the way, find the distance from the point of departure to arrival, or the initial course from the point of departure to arrival. Now, this table further goes on to talk about a few things. How do you convert C to CN? Okay, I'll explain that a little bit more in the video, but it turns out that for parallel sailing, you're either going east or west, so there is no conversion. Right? You just got to know if you're going east or west. For these three rhumb line sailings, the rules are the same. Okay, the prefix is going to be the direction of the change in latitude. The suffix is going to be the direction of change in longitude. But for Great Circle, it's going to be different. It's its own kind of sailing. It is not a rhumb line sailing. It's got its own rules. So the prefix for converting course angle to course is going to be, the prefix will take the same as L1. The suffix will take the same as D low. And if that doesn't really make sense to you, as you just follow along here, I will explain that a little bit further later on in the instructions for Bowditch. One of the other things that you might find interesting here is that when you if you have a course or a course angle, you want to stick it into a formula to get another term. It turns out for the rhumb line sailings, you can use either a course or a course angle without a problem. And if you end up with a negative, you can ignore it. But if you have a course that you're going to plug into a Great Circle formula, you should always convert it to course angle. From course to course angle, always convert to C. Okay, and that hopefully you know how to do that. The last thing I want to point out in this table is the various formula. So there's really only one formula for parallel sailing. There are three primary formulas you're going to use for plain sailing. For mid-lat, you're going to have four formulas, but it turns out that they're the same formulas from plain and the one from parallel. The only difference is that when we use it in mid-lat, we take the term L and convert it to LM. And then for Mercator sailing, there's only two formulas. There's this formula, and then there's this formula, which happens to be the plain sailing formula again. For Great Circle, there are actually 8 different formulas that we'll be using. And that's more than I want to stick in this little box. So there's a summary page on page 604 in Bowditch 2 that has all the formulas together. Okay, and then you can skip to page 609 and it breaks them out by category. Formulas for the vertex, formulas for points along the way, initial course and distance. All right, well, I think now it's time to actually skip to Bowditch now and start to look at how Bowditch is organized. So we'll go to the page where the sailings start in Bowditch next, and how to use them. So all the sailings start on page 575, okay, in Bowditch 2 1981, which by the way is available in the exam room. And all the terms that you're going to be interested in for the sailings are listed right here on this page. So latitude, mean latitude, mid-latitude, difference of latitude, meridional parts, meridional difference, longitude. Okay, and it also goes on to define the sailings. Now, there are definitions right here. I think you should, if you really want to understand the definitions of these various terms, you should go to the glossary in the back of the book. But this is a great page because it has all the terms you need to be familiar with and what their abbreviations are. You can see here on one page. Okay, so refer to that. Now, we're going to go to the next page, 576, and here's the very first sailing that we're going to be interested in. So this is plain sailing, and there's a little diagram right there. I'm not going to go into any long explanation of plain sailing. I'm going to assume that you already know that, but here you go right here. These are the three formulas that we're predominantly interested in plain sailing right here, these three, okay? L, D, and P. Then what they do is they give you an example of how to use those formulas. So for each one of the sailings, for plain, parallel, mid-lat, and Mercator, there's going to be two examples. There's only two ways that you're going to be using these formulas. There's only two types of problems you'll do. So here's example one. A vessel steams 188 miles on a course of 005. Find the difference of latitude and find the departure. Well, you're going to use two of these formulas up here. And then they show you that right there, D and C. So you're going to actually use the 188 miles on course 005. You're going to use this formula here, all right? And that's going to give you L. And then you're going to take that value and you'll go over here and then you'll get P, okay? Pretty basic. Now, here, right here, you'll notice these are the instructions on how to convert C course angle to CN course. All right. For all these sailings, when you do a formula here to get a course, you're going to have to convert that course to course angle. All right. And that will be done by a prefix and a suffix. And here are the rules. The labels north, south, east, west. North and south are the prefix. East and west are the suffix. For L, P, and C are determined by noting the direction of motion or the relative motion of the places. So in this case, the prefix is going to be north and the suffix is going to be east. Why? Because we went north, okay, our course was 005, and that is also east. 005 is to the north and to the east. So really, this 005 is course angle, so it's north 005 east, or 5 degrees east of north, which is 005, okay? All right, so let's move on. Here is another example. A ship is steamed a certain distance. What is the course? A ship is steamed 136 miles north and 203 miles west. What is that course and distance? All right, and here are the two formulas that you would use to solve that, okay? And those are, again, those formulas for plain sailing, okay? Now, we can skip over the next page, parallel sailing. This is the next sailing we're going to be doing. Okay, now, there's this formula right here. It turns out that this formula is really, it looks like there's two formulas here, but it's really only one formula, okay? Do you see this formula here? D low equals P secant L. Well, look, D low, P, L. They're really the same formula, just this one solved for D low, this one solved for P. You can see this one's got secant in it. That's 1 over cosine. If you don't remember what that is, just go to the glossary in the back of Bowditch 2 and look up the word secant. And several lines down in the definition, you'll see the 1 over cosine, okay? So now, parallel sailing, there's only two kinds of problems you can do. And here's one example. All right, you're going to use this formula, okay? And you might have to rearrange it for your particular term, but this is the only formula you're going to have to know. For plain sailing, we use 3 formulas. For parallel sailing, we're going to use 1. So here you go. Here's an example. The DR latitude of ship on this course, okay, on this latitude. Okay. So the ship steams. Okay, so what's the departure? What's P? Well, P equals D low cosine L. So we're going to need to calculate the D low In this case, they said they gave me an original longitude, they gave me a second longitude, okay? Oh, they gave me the change in longitude, 330. So I just substitute, okay? And I get my little D-low. You see this log stuff over here? You can pretty much ignore that because very few of us are using logs anymore. This is something that was being used, I think, really antecedent or before the advent of calculators. Okay, now here's the other kind of problem you could have. In this one, you were calculating the departure, and in this problem, you're going to calculate the change in longitude, D-low. So here's another example. Okay, the course is on 27, it's at 270, there's your latitude, and you're going to go 215 miles. What's the change in longitude? All right, so two different problems. All you have to do is recognize which situation the problem you have is like. Is it like example 1 or is it like example 2? If it's like example 1, then just do this formula. If it's like example 2, then just do this formula. Okay, so we're going to skip on to the next sailing. The next sailing is mid-latitude sailing, okay? And that starts on page 580. Now, it turns out that mid-latitude sailing combines plane and parallel. So it's going to use the 3 formulas for plane, and it's going to use the formula from parallel. But see, this looks exactly like the parallel formula. The only thing is that now we've added this LM. So with parallel, okay, it was L. Now it's changed to LM, or the mid-latitude. So that's going to be something else we're going to have to calculate. But again, here are the examples. So in mid-latitude, is your problem like example 1, or is it like example 2? There's only 2 things you can do with this, okay? You're given a point of departure and a point of arrival. What's your course and distance? Or you're given a point of departure and a course and distance, and what's your arrival, okay? So, so if your problem looks like this, then you should do this formula, 1, 2, and then 3. These 2 formulas are plane sailing formulas, and this is the parallel formula changed over for mid-lat. Okay, now you can ignore this log stuff over here. All right, you can just ignore that. All right, you can ignore that, ignore that. But the rest of this stuff, they're showing you how they do it. Okay, so here's the example. So they're calculating mid-latitude, they're calculating D-low, okay, and then they're substituting those values into these formulas in this order. Okay, so now the other possible situation is that you could have this example. Here you're given a departure and an arrival, latitude and longitude. What's the course and distance? And look, it's the same formulas from before, all right? But first you're doing the LM, that mid-latitude one. That's the parallel sailing portion of it. And then you're back to the plane sailing. So you're just doing those same formulas in reverse order, okay? And again, you can ignore this log stuff over here, all right? But you will want to do, here's the example, you will have to do all these calculations. So you'll have to calculate L, LM, D-low, all right? And then you will substitute those terms into this formula, and then here's your final answer. Now, again, here are the instructions on how to convert C to CN. They're the same instructions as they were for plane sailing, okay? So now, in this example, we went from 849 roughly to 17. So actually, in this example, we went from 8 to 17. We went further south. So the prefix is going to be south. And the suffix for our longitude, well, we went from 89 west to 104. We're going further west. So the suffix is west. So when I calculate my course, my C value from using this formula here is going to be my course angle is 60 degrees 21.9 minutes. Well, the prefix is south, so it's south 60 west. So I'm going to go 180, 60 degrees to the west, and that turns into a course of 240. So this is course angle and this is course. All right, whenever you use one of these formulas to calculate C, okay, you're getting a C from the formula. It's always given to you in course angle, and you have to convert it to course using a prefix and a suffix. And there's the instructions right there. Okay. So we've now covered quickly 3 of the sailings. Let's do the last sailing, Mercator Sailing. So here's Mercator Sailing. There's a little explanation. There's really only one formula for Mercator Sailing. All right. And here it is, right? Well, actually, I'm sorry. There's 2 formulas. That's one of the formulas. You see C, C, D low, M, M. It's really the same formula, just rearranged, solving for C, solving for D low. All right. And then here is the second formula. This is actually one of the plain sailing formulas. So you're either going to use these 2 or these 2. Remember that these are really the same formula. And look, again, there's an example. So if your problem looks like this problem, okay, given latitude and longitude of departure, latitude and longitude of arrival, course and distance, you're going to do first this formula, tan C equals D low over M, and then you're going to do D equals LC can't C, all right? Once again, you can ignore some of this stuff. You can ignore this log. You can ignore this log, okay? But here in this example, this is the example, you're going to have to look up the meridional parts for this latitude and for this latitude and get the meridional difference, and that's what you're going to substitute in here. And you'll have to get D low, that's what you put in there. So if I have M and D low, I'm going to be able to get C. Once I have C, I can stick that over here and I can get D, all right? Again, your C is course angle. In this case, it was 58. The prefix is north, the suffix is west. Why? Because I went from 32 to 36, I went north. So my prefix is north. And my D low, I went from 66 to 75. I'm going west, it's west. So it's north 58 west, which would be north, go 58 degrees west of north. So that is 360 minus 58, which is 301. All right. So that's example 1 of Mercator. Here's example 2 of Mercator. It's just the opposite, okay? Given a latitude and longitude of departure and a course and distance, what's the latitude and longitude of my arrival? Now, you'll notice here, there's no formulas, okay? So there was an editing problem in 1981, but this is not a big deal because I know that there's only 2 formulas in Mercator Sailing. So all I have to do is go back to example 1 and just do those formulas in opposite order. So I'll go back to example 1. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this formula first, do this one first, and then do this one second. And that's as easy as that. Okay. So the Great Circle section of the book begins on page 602. So let's skip down to page 602. All right, and here we are in 602. Now, I think it's well worth your while to read page 602, Rum Lines and Great Circles, a Great Circle, 603, because there's really a lot of theoretical explanation of what's going on, the difference between Rum Line and Great Circle, stuff about vertex. There's several questions in the nav general section will be answered in these 2 pages. And also on your oceans module, you'll get a problem where you have to do some like a composite sailing. You have to use the mnemonic chart, and these 2 pages will help you solve those problems as well. But let's go ahead and skip to page 604. So this formula, this page here, 604, is actually a summary page. It gives you all the formulas that you could ever really want to use and more for Great Circle sailing. It turns out that we're going to probably ignore most of these, several of these formulas, but there are what is it, 6, 7, 8 formulas that we're going to be using. All right, with these 8 formulas, you can solve any kind of sailing problem on the Coast Guard exam, or really sailing problem that you would have in the real world. So they boil down to this. There's 3 for the latitude of the vertex. There's 3 for points along the Great Circle track, and then there's 1 for the overall distance from L1 to L2, and 1 for the initial course. So we're going to be interested in 25, 27, and 29. Those are all for the vertex. And then we're also going to be interested in formula 31, 32, 33. Those are for points along the Great Circle track. And then this one here, 36, that'll be the overall distance from L1 to L2 for, we start here, we end there, what's the distance? And 37, which is for the initial course. Now, these 2 formulas, there are some rules you need to know. The rules are not listed on this page. The purpose of 604 is just to give you all the formulas you could want. If you want to to know what the rules are here. Well, it turns out that the rule is if you cross the equator, treat L2 as negative. If when you calculate course angle, okay, if this value as calculated is negative, you got to add 180 to it. Turns out that those instructions are on page 612. But if you can remember those instructions, this might be the only page you need to go to. If they're asking you a question about the vertex, you know you're going to use either 25, 25, 27, or 29. And all you really have to do is look at the terms they gave you in the problem and which of these terms you're solving for. And you can just choose the right formula and plug and chug. If they're asking you for points along the great circle track, you're going to use 31, 32, or 33. Okay? Look at the terms they gave you. Look at what you're being asked to find. Choose one of these formulas that has those terms in it. Plug and chug, you're done. All right? And then here's that. So, but if you don't want to have to sort of do a process of deduction here, in the next few pages between 604 and 612, they show you the rest of those. Well, there's categories. So let's just kind of scroll along here. All right, so let's skip to page, right here, vertex. That's page 609. So when you get to the vertex, here's one of those formulas. Oh, look, it's formula 25. Here's another formula, it's formula 27. Here's another formula, formula 29. So on page 604, all the formulas were listed together, but now they're breaking them out, saying if you want the vertex, these are the three formulas you could use. So now again, you look at these and you look at what was given to you in the problem, okay? And you're gonna have two variables, you gotta find the third, choose the right formula. You might have to rearrange it, solve for L1 or something like that, but you can do that. Now for points along the great circle track, here's formula 31. Here's formula 32, there's formula 33, as promised. Now, the last page, 612, gives formula 36 and formula 37, and then right here it gives the rules for those, okay? So, if you cross the equator, treat L2 as negative, and if using the C formula, if you calculate that, if that value turns out to be negative, you have to add 180. And then remember, this is C, course angle. Okay, all these formulas here are the ones for the vertex and so on and so forth. Anything with C in it is course angle. You still have to convert it to course. Okay, and remember, for great circle, the rules are different. Okay, the prefix is the sign of L1. So if you remember, if you start off in the southern hemisphere, your prefix will be south. If you start off in the northern hemisphere, your prefix will be north. Okay, and then your suffix will be the direction of D low. So if you go west, it'll be west. And if you go east, it'll be east. And that's about all I have to say about the organizations of sailings. By the way, the rule for converting C to CN for great circle, I believe it's on page 704 of your book. Okay, but if you go to the back of the book in the gloss in the index, you can look up course angle defined or course angle discussed. It'll tell you what page it's on. I think it's page 704 or 705, something like that. And then a third of the way down the page, it tells you the rule that I just told you. Treat make the prefix to agree with L1, make the suffix to agree with the direction of D low. But the words are kind of cryptic, so it might be better just to remember those rules. Good luck.